left, right.
Welcome to the latest episode of SipTalk. This episode is about two dudes giving dating advice, whether we should or we shouldn't. But this is a kind of fun one. Let me know what you think, if our advice is solid or if we got to go back to dating school. Either way, thank you guys for joining. Don't forget to like if you have not, subscribe, and interact with this podcast any way possible. It helps us out, and we do truly appreciate that. I'll see you guys on the other end. This is Sip Talk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course, let's go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. We are live. Welcome everyone to Sip Talk, episode 163. My name is Justin DiGiulio out of my basement in New Jersey, joined by James, the Bosnator Boswell, in his racing NASCAR jersey out of Charleston, South Carolina. James the Bosnator is a professional referee, a bartender, a philosopher, and most exciting of all, an accountant. James, nice to have you here. Tell me about this jersey you're wearing.
I think it's actually like a cycling jacket. It's nice and warm because it's kind of cold down here, and this house doesn't have the best insulation, so it gets kind of cold in my room when it's cold outside.
You're looking sharp. You got the shirt on with the different logos, different sponsorships. Very cool looking. Today we got a pretty cool topic. We are talking about dating older women. And that's a pretty exciting topic. I have some experience there. I believe you have some experience there. But this is Sip Talk, so we're going to get started with some beverages. So I got to ask you, what are you drinking down there?
Going with rum and Coke.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm going to shout out to some sponsors we got here. I got a nice bottle of, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's French, Beaujolais Nouveau. I'm not going to open that tonight, though, but that's one of the bottles on my sponsor list. And actually, this other bottle was sent to my office from a company called Staged NY. I don't think they sponsored the wine, but they sent the wine to the office along with a nice. They sent this marble. They sent a bunch of stuff. They sent a marble cutting board, but obviously, we wouldn't cut on marble because that would damage your knives. But it's a cheese cutting board, so it actually has a wire attachment that closes down onto whatever cheese, and it slices the cheese that way.
It's a niche application.
Well, if you've ever cut the cheese before, you know how bad that smells. No, if you ever cut cheese with a regular knife, depending on the cheese you're cutting, it can get kind of messy. So having the thin wire is nice for cutting the softer cheeses. You get actually nice kind of clean cut lines. And they sent some cool stuff, but it's and people who are listening can check out their Instagram at StagedNY.
And I'm guessing that's a real estate staging company, so you've already moved out of the house and it's completely empty, but you want it to look better. So
that's it. That's the idea. And I haven't gotten to know them too well, but they sent over a little care package that I was not expecting. It actually went office, and they called me and they're like, "Hey, we sent you something and you're not there." I was like, "Oh, we moved." And then the guys that dropped it off, actually they brought it to our new office. That's kind of the nice thing about New York City is, even though it's big and kind of spread all over the place, you can get around pretty easy, and they knew exactly where I was. They brought it to the new place. I didn't know kind of who was sending what, and somebody just showed up with a box, which I always get freaked out about because I'm always afraid like some shit's going to explode or something. Sometimes, people send things to the office. So
that's a really unfounded fear, though. Like, how often does that happen? And when was the last time you heard about it?
I don't know. Either way,
that was a really legitimate fear. Was in the early '90s when the Unabomber was sending things.
Well, either way, I have the interns open things for me, in the staircase. So. I'm joking, actually. They don't do it in the staircase. They do it outside in the sidewalk. So we get a little criticism on the podcast, which is why I want to get into this dating older women, or from the women's perspective, dating younger men. I want to get into that pretty quick. But some of the other criticism we've gotten on the podcast is we don't come across real enough. So I wanted tonight to share an argument I had right before the podcast. I just kind of jotted down the high points of the argument. But I want to open this bottle that I'm struggling to open with.
What do they mean by real enough? Like, I'm not really sure how to respond.
Well, I think people. That's tough. I think maybe we don't share enough of ourselves, or if anybody's listening, how are we not real enough on air? I think we're pretty legit. We try, but share. Let me pour this into my branded mug here. And they sent a whole bunch. They sent like a wine, kind of a wine stopper, which is kind of cool because it's tough sometimes to stick the old cork back into your wine. And sent a pretty cool gift pack. So, and I just brought some of this stuff home tonight. So look, I'll share with you my dilemma, and I think you might get a kick out of it.
Raj wants you to restate the topic of the cast real quick for those tuning in.
Okay, topic of the cast tonight is women dating younger men, and from our perspective, men dating older women, which you and I both have some experience on. So, I got a girlfriend now. I'm in a committed relationship, and as relationships go, they have their ups and downs. And I updated my phone last night, which is not typically an element of contention in a relationship when you update your software on a cell phone. But I'm sick of these. And
I can't see a relationship where that would be an issue. And if it is,
well, me neither. But things are connected in this world. So I get a lot of phone calls from random numbers. As a real estate agent, my phone number is all over the internet, and I try to answer the phone every time. But sometimes if it looks like a scam, when you get a phone call from a number that, I don't know how many calls you get, but a lot of times they scam numbers that are similar to your own. So the number looks like mine minus a digit or two. I'm like, oh, that's probably a scam.
I don't know if you have this feature, but somehow I do, where a lot of times if I get a call, it'll actually say possible scam.
Well, exactly. So I get that also. And now also whatever the software is doing is it will identify who the registered caller is, and the phone will display that person's name. And that was kind of nice. I'm pretty good with numbers, so I can remember numbers pretty well. And if somebody's called me a couple of times, I know who that person is. And I don't save everybody that I have, 3 or 4 phone calls with. I save typically clients and people that I, acquaintances and people that I have a future to talk to. But somebody who reaches out to me twice and we have 2 phone calls, I don't usually save. But whatever the software was doing was now displaying wireless caller on the phone. So rather than displaying the phone number, rather than displaying the registered name for that number, it was just displaying wireless caller. And now I'm just answering all these calls, and I'm getting all these people that normally I wouldn't answer calls for. And I assume almost everybody who's calling me is a wireless caller. So what I did was I went into my settings a couple weeks ago, and it said something about displaying caller ID. So it said display caller ID on or off. So I turned it off. Now that was my personal line. I don't make too many phone calls from my personal line just because not many people have that number. And I went on with my life, didn't think anything of it. And then last night I updated the operating software on the phone. And then today I'm headed out of the office. I give the lady a call. I say, I click on her name, and I was going to do a FaceTime call, but I was like, well, we're walking to the train, so I'll do a regular call. And she answered, and I said, hey, what's up? Where are you? And she said, why are you calling me from a blocked number? I said, what? I'm not calling you from a blocked number. She goes, you're calling me from a blocked number. Why are you calling me from a blocked number? And I said, well, I didn't know it was a blocked number. She said, well, it says blocked. I was like, well, I didn't know. I didn't, I've called you before. It wasn't blocked. Now, I ended up calling my other line from my phone. It showed up as blocked hidden caller. I said, that's on. So we get in the train. She's a little upset. I don't know why she's upset. I mean, I understand she wasn't maybe expecting on the phone. She goes, I usually don't pick up for block. Did you do that? And I said, well, I didn't. It wasn't intentional. Now, I know in this moment that her mind is reeling. She's like, why would he call me from a blocked number? What's he doing with this blocked number? And I don't really know how to defend myself. So I'm looking at my settings. I'm like, well, and I show her, look, well, I turned this like 3 weeks ago. Maybe that's. And I turned it off and I called her and it worked. And she's like, well, I still don't understand why you would be calling me from a blocked number. And then I
was calling you from my number, and it came through as blocked.
Well, I knew she was upset, so I know she's upset in this moment. I don't really know how to defend myself because I didn't. There's no intention there to hide the number. I didn't even know I was hiding the number. I didn't realize when it said display caller ID. It was
I think it's
displaying
the
my
appearance
caller
that
ID.
you had something to hide, even though you hadn't done anything wrong.
Fair
it
enough.
made
All
it
right.
look
Here,
like you were
follow
doing
me.
something wrong.
Follow me with where I'm going on this. So now we're kind of on the train stewing, and I don't know what to say. I know she's upset. I'm sitting there. I really don't know what to say. So I say, so what what do you if I had blocked my number, what are you proposing I would be doing with a blocked number? And with a straight face, she turns to me and she goes, stalking someone. so I go, I take that in. I pause, 15 seconds. I'm pausing too long. I want to continue the conversation. 25 seconds, 40 seconds goes by. I'm silent. I don't know what to say. 2 minutes go by. I go, one, do you think I would stalk someone by just calling them randomly and hoping they would pick up? She goes, I don't know, but it's really shady. So now we get off the train, we get in the car, we got a 40-minute drive ahead of us, and we're in the car, and I can still tell the air is not clear, and
It's probably that cheese cutter.
it might have been the cheese cutter that I had in my bag for cutting the cheese. So we're about 4 minutes from the house, and she turns to me and she goes, look, do you want to be in an open relationship? And I said, no, I don't. I enjoy being in a committed relationship. That's the kind of guy I am. And she goes, well, I just don't get it. What do you want? I said, I'm very happy. I didn't mean to call you from the blocked number. Everything's good. You're reading into this way more. And she goes, well, if you wanted to be in an open relationship, I could bring 5 guys home tonight. And I said, that sounds wonderful. Could you get the seasoned fries if you're ordering? All right, that was a joke. All right, so we'll talk about the topic.
I get the joke, but you
All right, so
gotta
that was
just
a lot
make
of
her
build-up.
understand.
There was a lot of build up for the joke. That's all. We don't need to. That was it. It was a long joke. I'm sorry. Didn't land as squarely as I would have liked it to. So we'll move on.
I gotta say though, just I've been in situations like that in a relationship where I didn't do anything, but circumstances made it look like I did. In trying to explain, look, I know it looks bad, but nothing actually happened.
No, mine was a joke. Mine was a long-winded joke.
Yours wasn't an actual situation that happened?
Well, it was, but it was just a build-up for a joke. But we could have a whole conversation about being caught in predicaments that there was no malintention, and it is what it is.
And no misdoing.
And no misdoing, exactly. So we're about to talk about what it's like dating older women from the men's perspective. If any women want to chime in about dating younger men, hopefully none of my exes. I'd love to invite you onto this conversation. But before we get started, also, I want to share with you tonight. I bought this promo book for my car. So the dealership has that promotional pamphlet usually for the cars. You go into the dealer, sometimes they'll have those real thick book magazines. They don't really have them that much anymore because everything's digital and online.
Yeah.
Okay. So I ordered this book online, and it's a nice book. It came actually in a hard case envelope, which was real. and it's it's a pretty thick book. It's probably 40 or 50 pages. 14 inches wide, 10 inches tall or so. It's a real substantial looking book. Very cool. It's really, I bought it because I want to learn as much about this car as possible. I'm not a,
For the
I'm
Audi?
not, yeah, I'm not a super passionate guy, but distance makes the heart grow fonder, and the car's been in the shop for almost 2 months. I told you I blew up the engine.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so but yeah, I'm excited to read the book. This is another relationship contention issue. The book's on the counter. I said, "You got to see this," and she goes, "What's that?" Now, I think a woman would look at a book like this and say, "Oh, that's just junk mail." So I said, "No, no,
Some
I
would.
ordered this. I ordered this. It came from overseas. I've been waiting. I've been waiting 3 weeks for this to get here. I've been checking the mailbox every day." She starts flipping through. I said, "No, no, no, don't flip through it. I want to go slow and I want to enjoy reading. I want to enjoy reading this book."
Uh,
So, but my perspective on reading the car promotional book was shared,
well,
unfortunately.
most people don't have the same love of cars that you and I do. Like in the last couple of days, I've discovered some YouTube channels of like people, like just people running shops and doing interesting car projects, and that has sucked me down a huge rabbit hole, which
I
I'm currently in the looking at like how affordable buying a kit car would be.
I think we should continue that conversation. I want to address a comment from Sweet Baby Axe on TikTok saying, "Define older women." That can be pretty open ended. Well,
Well, I think
I
we're gonna,
think that
yeah, let's get into the topic.
yeah. So the topic is dating older women, and that can and that's where this topic gets interesting because if you're 25 years old and you're dating a girl that's 26 years old, or if you're 25 years old and you're dating a girl that's 33 years old, those are major differences. But there is a major difference between being born in June and being 25 and dating a girl that was born in the same year as you but was born in April. So she's got a couple months on you
That's
versus a girl
nothing.
that was born, but there's still an odd dynamic at play that age actually has some weight to it in relationships. So you could date a woman that's 2 months older than you, and there still is this dynamic where she has a bit more weight in the age department. You follow me there?
Yeah, hopefully not more weight in the weight department.
Oh man, you don't get me started on that. I got a whole rant for you. End up, it's
Let's define things because I would say, yeah, if there's a 2 month difference between you and her, that's technically her being older, but I don't think that that matters. I would say that dating an older woman starts when it's at least 1 calendar year or more,
I'm gonna say
and that's
any I'm going to say any range, but the older you get, the wider the age range, the more acceptable. Would you agree with me there?
I think the wider the age range, the more difficult it typically is because there's an experience gap and a maturity gap, and
Well,
women
women
tend to.
women are mature much more quickly. So a woman who's 30 years old and a guy who's 25 years old is not going to be the same maturity gap as a guy 30 years old and a woman who's 25 years old.
Yeah, what I've found both in theory and in practice is that women tend to want to date someone that is more mature and farther along in life than they are.
Well, I think
Now,
I think in date, but I think in dating, an element of security is important. And it's nice to, whether you're a man or a woman, know that that other person has their shit together. Now, I think for women, that's a bit more important because that's an element of maturity. So when you're trying to measure a man's maturity, you want his shit to be together. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah, whereas men are, I know plenty of men that don't really care too much about whether or not their girlfriend has their life together and in order. That doesn't matter to men as much. There's some men that certainly care about it, but I think there's been times where I've dated girls that like have been going through things or whatever, and it hasn't been an issue for me. I'm like,
Wait,
all right,
hold
whatever.
up,
Like, I don't.
wait, pause. We're talking about age differences, and you just threw out that you've been dating women who have been going through things. So, explain that caveat there that women that are going through things, how you
Like
come to dating them, and how they come
changes
to
in
dating you.
employment, changes in career, changes in where in their living situation, or another common theme is dealing with mental illness.
So you like to get them when they're down, or is
Uh,
it that
I
they like to get you when they're down?
I think it's probably more the second. I'm not seeking out these people. That's just what I happened to find.
All right. And these are
But
older women who when they're in a
no, I'm talking mostly it's kind of a 50-50 split in terms of whether they've been older or younger. Like currently, I'm dating a girl that's 2 years older than me.
and how does she handle your immaturity?
Usually just laughs it off.
Cool. So I want to share with you a little research that I did. And I just Googled to get an idea of some perspective on articles. I Googled dating older women. So that would be from the younger man's perspective. And then for the mirror on that, I Googled dating younger men, which would presumably be from the women's perspective, the woman's perspective. And I try to do it in a private browser where there's no cookie history, so they don't have my background, so it's not kind of they're feeding me what if kind of a
Mm-hmm.
random person might get. And the first result when I searched dating older women was a men dating older women. The first result was online mature booty calls, mature hookups.
Oh yeah, like an adult friend finder kind of a thing.
That was result number one. Now, when I Googled dating younger men, so the female's perspective, search result number one, brides.com. Six things to consider before dating a younger man.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that really
Brides.com, that's a website that certainly isn't going to have an angle.
but just the fact that, and actually, so the first search result from the man's perspective was online mature booty calls. Second result, mature hookups online. Third result, his wife, your FWB, dating for married. Neglected. We can promise neglected wives. The rest is up to you. So that's the idea. Is you're going to hook up with
All right,
someone.
so yeah,
with an older
there's a
woman who's
clear
married.
pattern
Hold up.
here.
Yeah, and then following result was dating older people. Lots of single people are waiting for you. Try our dating service. And in contrast to the result of the women's perspective dating younger men, it was all articles about the ins and outs, the pros and the cons of dating younger men. So really crazy, just the two different perspectives that a man dating older woman is looking for hookups. A woman dating older men younger men is out there, looking for a relationship, and here are some warning signs, and here are some things to consider, and your heart's in this. Make sure your brain's in it with you.
It really plays into the stereotype that women want commitment and men just want to hook up.
It does, but I don't think every person is like that. And I think if they're listening to this podcast, that probably they're not looking for advice on a quick hookup. They're either they just follow us because they follow us, or they stumble across this podcast, not live, which we're live in real life now. So ask your questions if you're listening.
Well, if they're asking for advice on a quick hookup, they're really in the wrong place.
Yeah, but that's my point. Nobody's going to stumble across us if they're looking for a quick hookup. They're going to stumble across us because they actually have questions about dating, dating somebody with an age gap. So,
Joe, what are you saying is not true? I'd like to know.
we'll have to wait on that.
Yep.
Reply on that. Stumbled, tripped, curious. So I want to read to you some of the perspective from brides.com.
Yeah, I'd like to hear this.
Because if the first result for men looking for older women was online hookups with mature older women, and the
next like 3 or 4 are also that.
Well, yeah, the next 4 were, and we know what that is, right? Like that's a C. Men are looking for older women because they're looking for hookups, and then result number 1 from women: things to consider when dating a younger man. And when they say dating, they mean multiple dates, relationships, not fucking a younger man, right? Like that's pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward. So men are looking to fuck, women are looking for relationships, is the perspective the internet's giving us. But I want to share with you the brides.com 6 things to consider when dating a younger man. Number 1.
I want to respond to Keijo saying that girls always want a relationship and men just want to hook up. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that that's the stereotype. And I agree with you that it's not true. But the perspective and the common thought is that those are the differences between men and women. Is that women always wanted a committed relationship and men just want to hook up. I don't think it's true.
No, I think there's
observed
a lot.
But I've also
there's lots of guys. Yeah, there's lots of guys. Well, firsthand, I think you and I, for the most part, have pursued relationships, and what comes.
I'm in
what
one
comes
right now, and I'm not looking to hook up with other people.
What are you looking for? Seasoned fries from Five Guys?
Yeah, well, you can just invite all 5 guys over too. Like we'll have a party.
First off, there's no 5 Guys in this neighborhood. There's a Shake Shack though, so that's promising. All right, so 6 things to consider when dating a younger man via brides.com. They often have different priorities. When dating a younger man, you may notice they have different priorities from those of someone older. For instance, a younger man might be working to make a name for himself in his career, therefore spend a lot of time in his office. So, yeah, men, that is what it is. Fair enough. Number 2.
Jess says older women want a man that makes their own money and can keep it up, hence younger men for stamina. So I guess what they're saying is that like younger men are going to have younger men aren't going to tire out in bed as quick as an older guy. Which I haven't been with an older guy, so I don't know.
Well,
Keijo says they're inviting me to go out to Red Drum on Wednesday night. Evidently, it's Cougar night. So Keijo lives in Charleston, because you wouldn't know about Red Drum. And actually, a couple, maybe a month or so ago, somebody posted on the Charleston subreddit asking for Cougar bars. And Red Drum was like the number 1 pick of the respondents.
Really? So, red. What is it? Red Drum is a cougar bar?
Yeah, it's out in Mount Pleasant, I think. But Keijo, I would.
James is taking that as an invite. James may end up at this cougar bar on the other side of town.
Not to pick up women. I'm in a relationship. It's not something I'm looking for.
All right. Yeah, just to do some research. Just for some research. All right. So number 2.
I'd bring my girlfriend with me.
So number 2, things you should know about dating a younger man. Younger men can have less of a past. And I think that's
by definition it's true.
Yeah, clearly. But that's a pro and a con, because having less of a past could mean that they are still curious. And a lot of reasons why people break up with great relationships when they are young, high school, college, is because they want to experience more. So, yeah, they might have less emotional baggage than someone older, whereas an older man might be divorced or have children or have complicated relationship history. A young man may not have that, but he may not be ready to settle down. All right, so next one is you may have a different dynamic. Women tend to appreciate the fact that they're the ones with more life experience in a relationship, so the older women. Many women feel empowered dating a younger man, and they might be the more worldly one. After all, being a woman in your 40s dating a younger man can be seen as a power play. And I'll give you that. I think being an older woman dating down, if you're playing your cards right, can be a bit of a power play, and that could be exciting for younger men. But the one thing that hasn't escaped me in reading about this in our research was that and Rosh brought up a good point. The Macron, the what's his name in France, Emmanuel Macron is dating
Former
his
teacher.
former teacher who is 25 years older than he is,
Yeah,
which
that's
means
crazy to me.
he met her probably when he was in his 20s at the latest. And I think there's an element. There's got, and Freud would probably like have a field day with this. There's got to be an element of men that date that far up, where there's some emotional damage, right? If you're dating that far up, where the person physically appears that much older than you are, and is has a different kind of life dynamic than you do, then I feel like that's like when a woman dates a guy that's 30 years older than her. There might be some
Yeah, I
bad
think it's
issues.
both. It goes both ways. Where if you're dating like extremely out of your age, then
Ooh,
there's something.
I get a good. I get sorry. I got a good comment on TikTok. Sorry. Finish your sentence.
No, hit that. I'm agreeing with you that it's not just
So,
men. If you're a man dating someone way older, if you're a woman dating someone way older, it's the same thing at play.
so a couple of comments on TikTok here. Older men from Venny 299. Older men want to come home early and watch TV and sleep. Well, those are anybody who's doing that in life. Young guys do that too. Young women do that a lot actually, where they just come home, watch Netflix, and go to sleep. These are people that need to expand their lives. These are people that are dying slowly. But and then but here's one I think you like from Zoopy. Younger men are moldable. Older men are set in their ways, stubborn, and often impotent. And older men are controlling and looking for too much. So we got, and that's from Shan Branala on TikTok. So
So that makes me think of an old adage I heard, which is that like men get into a relationship and hope that their partner will never change, and women get into a relationship hoping to mold their partner into what they want them to become.
but I
Again,
think that's very true, and that is a benefit for women dating younger men.
yeah, it's certainly right that the younger you are, the more room you have to change. The older you
But
get, the less likely you're going to just make some big adjustment.
so again, this is some of the pushback that we get on the podcast, is sharing kind of our personal perspective, which you and I have a really good job at seeing a lot of perspectives and then speculating. So what would be a scenario that you can envision, like being 30 years old dating a woman who's 40, and then how would that play out on your life? Like what's the is that a reasonable, could you imagine dating somebody who's 40 at 30 years old? What would be too
Kind
far
of.
for you? What would
10
be too
years would
far for
probably
you?
be too far. I don't think I could do much more than about 5.
Yeah, I think
Um,
in a mid 20s, mid 30s perspective, it also it depends on when if you want kids or not, and how serious you want that relationship to be.
yeah, and that's one of the issues that's kind of special to me is like as someone who very much does not want kids, it's been hard, especially at my age, to find people around my age that don't want to have kids because so many women around the age of 30 or so all of a sudden start caring very much about having kids. And
It's tough.
that
Well, yeah,
that
especially in the South, it is tough for you to find somebody who doesn't want to procreate.
and that's brought a number of dates or potential dates. Like if I've been messaging with somebody, that's brought everything to a screeching halt.
Well,
And
I think
at this
it's
point, I
important that
bring
you.
it up early, so that way I'm just like, look, let's get this out of the way now.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I think it's important that you bring it up early so that you don't waste anybody else's time. And also, if you're out on a second or third or fourth date and you bring it up then, and that person's kind of world of potential crumbles in front of you. You don't want that. It's better off to bring that up earlier. Nobody brought up the notion of boy toy, says Rosh. They're usually not making their money, as opposed to what Jess suggested. So yeah, I think that's what the article. I'm only on three or four. The article saying is that dating down from women is a bit of a power play. It's nice, men typically, especially older men, their 40s and 50s, especially post divorced, date younger women, and it's kind of nice to have like some arm candy. Once a man is established and doesn't need something from a partner, they can date down and date somebody who's pretty or fun to hang out with, but doesn't add much more in value. Especially if they have kids, they don't need to find someone to mate with who's going to support their kids. Women, on the other hand, when they're older, dating down, are looking exactly for that. Women. Women peak sexually at a later age than men do, and financially, if they're in the workforce, also typically at a later age than men do. And it is a bit of a power move to have some arm candy as a woman who is a younger guy.
And from a guy's perspective, dating someone that's older, like they've got the benefit of more experience, so you can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, KJ says find a cougar, James. Well, James has, a slight cougar. 2 years.
He's 2 years older than me, and she is okay with the concept of not having kids. It's not something that she loves, but it's something that she can
at a
accept.
certain age. At a certain age, women may come to terms with that it may not be an option. That
but that age has been shifting older and older, where like I would say even to like 45 or almost to 50, it's still an option.
Yeah, well, especially the way we're just health wise doing a lot better, and we're able to procreate at a later age. All right, so option number 4.
When I was working in hotels, my boss was probably 51 or 52 and had a kid.
That was a lady boss?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Number 4 here, what you should know about dating a younger man. Younger men are generally up for more adventure. So just like the comment here on TikTok said, let's see, younger men more motivable. Older men just want to come home early and watch TV and sleep. I think as men age, and I can speak as a guy who is currently aging minute by minute, hour by hour, week by week, year by year, that I was much more adventurous as a younger dude. And now I look for a bit more of routine. But I also do some crazy shit. When I blew up
but there's stuff that I did 10 or 15 years ago that I look back on and say, there's no way in the world I would do that today.
Well, but I was just thinking, like when I blew my engine up in the car last month, that was I haven't done that in a while, but I used to do a lot more of that. I was racing home. I was doing like a $110 or something like that, going fast. But when we were kids, you remember we used to drive out to that mountain when we were both ski instructors. And we used to drive out to this mountain, and we'd push like 120 miles an hour and just race out there as fast. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We used to go as fast as the fucking vehicle would go every time we went out there. Now for me, it's like if the road's open, I got the radar detector on, like, the conditions are good. We get, good temperature. There's no precipitation. Roads are dry. Yeah, I'll push the engine. I'll push the speed. But when we were kids, we do that all the time. So, yeah, I'll give it, I don't know if the next decade has an hold for me, but I could guess it's probably less adventure than the previous decade did. So I'll give brides.com a point there.
Yeah, I agree with them on that one. What's the next point?
Okay. You may get pushback from friends and family.
Well, that's more of like a societal thing where society has deemed that, like, women should always date older men, and anytime that you're breaking a norm, there's going to be some people that say, well, why aren't you doing what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, I'll buy that. And there is,
But I think I'll tell you right now, if I were to start dating someone who's 20 and I'm 35, I would get pushback from friends and family. Like, James, what are you doing with someone that's not even legal to drink?
yeah, well, 20. But even if they were 21, I don't think you would get the legal to drink. I think you just get the
Yeah,
what are
they
you
would
doing with
just
somebody so young?
yeah. Like, what kind of conversations are you having with someone who's 21?
Sure, but traditionally, not throughout history, throughout the history of humankind, relationships have existed to allow people to procreate and protect children, and for the sake of humanity. So, when you're a man dating an older woman or a woman dating a younger man, especially if it's you've decided you don't want to have kids, or if kids are out of the way, that aspect of the relationship ceases to exist. So you have that less. You're going to have a lot of pushback because that's not what this relationship is for. This relationship needs to be fulfilling in other ways than building a family and procreating, right? Relationships
Yeah,
can fill many needs, but building a family is not all of them. The pushback you're going to get from your friends and family is that they're expecting you to follow this traditional line where you meet someone, you get engaged, you get married, you have some kids, you put the kids in college, and then you retire and die. And if you do
yeah.
that, your family will be happy.
Rosh asks, do you think the pushback from the age about age difference would be the same as like a taller woman dating a shorter man? And I think it would be pretty similar, where people would be like, "Huh, that's not something you normally see."
Well, I have some short friends, and a couple of them are dating taller women. And at a certain height, it's more likely than not you're going to date a taller woman, or at
Yeah,
least a woman your height. That kind of 5'6" range for men. You're not like crazy short, but it's likely you're going to be the
five
majority of
five or
women are going
five
to be
six. That's
taller.
pretty short for a man.
Yeah, and a lot of the women are going to be taller than you. So, but I always sometimes it's weird. I have one friend who's got a kind of tall, lanky, skinny girlfriend, and they look weird together, very weird. And then I have another friend who has a just kind of regular body shape woman, but she is taller than him, and about the same height difference between both of the two friends, and one of them it looks absurd, and the other one it just looks normal in a strange way. So I think it has a lot to do with the dynamic between that couple, height differences.
Yeah.
Um,
Um.
you know what I learned recently actually is that so we were talking about that your friends and family might judge you, and I said, well, traditionally, or you might have said this, that relationships are to fulfill a function of procreating and raising a
No, you
family.
said that. I
That
disagree
was
that
me.
relationships are for
Well,
procreation.
traditionally, throughout the history of humanity, there's a benefit of having people procreate and stay together for the sake of relationships. But I learned something recently that that babies being cute has its advantages, and that is that humans and other animals struggle to kill cute things.
Yeah, it's an
So
evolutionary. It's something that's evolved to make us
yeah,
want to take care of babies because they look cute.
yeah. So looking cute as a baby is an evolutionary advantage for that species because babies and children of any species are bound to do some dumb stuff, and if your baby, imagine you're like a wild uh, animal, a wild human, all right, caveman, and you come home and you've been writing hieroglyphics on the wall in your cave, and your baby has scribbled effectively Crayola hieroglyphics on top of your well established hieroglyphics,
I
and
have
then
no
your
idea where
baby
you're going with this.
your baby, rather than just punch your baby in the face, you can't do that because this is ancient caveman times. You're not going to get arrested if you do it. Nobody's going to report you to child protective services, but if you punch your baby, it's going to die, and that's bad for the sake of humanity because the species is not going to continue to procreate, and you're knocking one of your own out. if you look at that baby and you cock your fist back and you're like, I can't hit that. It's too cute. That's
Yeah,
that.
which makes you wonder how ugly people still exist.
Well, because their babies look cute. All right, sorry,
Things go downhill from there.
They do.
Yeah, you would
so
think ugliness would be a recessive gene.
but cuteness wears off with age, right? So you would think ugliness would be a recessive gene. All right, so and then last from Brides.com, your views on commitment may differ. So I think that's an important one. I think traditionally it's assumed that the woman wants a commitment and the man does not. And that's so I'll read you what Brides.com says. If you're looking for a long-lasting, serious relationship, you could find challenging to establish that with a younger guy. While an older man may want to have children and settle down, a younger man may want to keep sowing his wild oats and have an open relationship and may not be into the idea of commitment. Well,
And call you from blocked numbers.
I think that, yeah, exactly. What are you doing with a block? I don't know. Why would I block them? You're stalking people? Yes, I stalk people. I just listen to them say hello and they say nothing. Again, let me reiterate that was I was using that as fodder for a joke. But they mentioned earlier in this article the perspective of a 40s plus year old woman, and I think a 40s plus year old woman, if they're dating a younger guy, they're dating a guy probably in their mid to late 30s, and then an older man is going to be a man in his late 40s or early 50s or older. So, are you really looking for settling down and having children with somebody who's that much older than you are? If you're in your 40s,
Well, and also chances are pretty good that if you're trying to date a guy in his late 40s or early 50s, he might already have kids. He might, and like maybe he's separated and he's got kids, and maybe that's something that you don't want. Is you don't want to have other people's kids in your life. You might want to have kids of your own, but you want to have them.
well, also I think what this really boils down to is as a, and let's play this both ways, as a woman and as a man. As a woman, what do you really want and what's feasible, right? Like you have to pick your partner. If you're looking for a long-term relationship, you got to pick your partner well. So if you're 40 years old, I think somebody who's 24 years old is probably not going to work out in the long run. Whereas if you're dating somebody who's 33 or 37, there might be some potential there, but you got, just like you say, when you're dating early on, you let them know whether you want kids or not. You got to work that stuff out early. So I've noticed something that's nice about dating at an older age is there's a lot more honesty, much more early on, and I think that people who can get that out there pretty quickly have better luck in relationships and more long-term relationships.
I think there's a lot of reasons why there's more honesty the older you get. One is you have a better idea as to what you actually want, so you can articulate it. Two is you have the maturity to know that it's smart to get it out of the way early. And you probably also have more confidence to just advocate for yourself. And so when you put all those together, you're going to be much more likely to just have a candid conversation early on with somebody and say, here's where I am, this is what I want, this is the other stuff that I don't care about. Where do you fall?
Now, bear in mind that I've led a brokerage with, I've hired hundreds and hundreds of agents. Most of them have been junior to me. And so that means that I got a lot of guys in their 20s and early 30s. And because we're pretty tight-knit and pretty relaxed environment, I hear a lot about their dating lives. One thing that I notice with younger people is really that they withhold a lot, and they're scared. They're scared to share what they want. They're just really scared on a multitude of levels. Whereas older people will be straight up with where they stand. I have a friend who's mid 30s, recently started dating somebody new, and he's like, "This is how much money I have in my bank account. This is what I'm trying to do. Like this, accept me for who I am." And I think if he was 10 years younger in that situation, he would try to hide his cards. right? And not
Yeah.
show his cards. But that doesn't help you when you realize that you're both on the same team. So you're not hiding your cards from the opponent. All right, the person on the other side of the table on a date at the restaurant is actually on your team as well. So you show them your cards, you see what you can pair and triple up on, you see if you get a flush or a full house, and you play the hand together. You play both hands. And it's
Yeah.
easier for older people to do than it is for younger people.
Yeah.
You know?
So I got to run pretty soon. You want to do some closing thoughts?
Yeah, let me share it with you, my last closing thought, and then we'll wrap. So I walked. This is not related to dating. This is a pet peeve ish, and I'll try to keep it quick. I walked by a Hollister yesterday. I actually walk by it every day. I didn't realize it was there, and I noticed in the window there was a plus size mannequin. Now it was short. It was like 5'2", and I'm thinking, is this supposed to be like like middle school, like chubby 16-year-old girl? Like why are they shaping this mannequin? Now there's an Old Navy at the other end of the block. The Old Navy's got like some pretty thick mannequins though, but I hadn't seen those anywhere else. So now I noticed yesterday that Hollister is doing that, and I just thought it was a bit funny that Hollister, which was known for, and they've had some lawsuits against it for being kind of discriminatory on who they hire and who their clothes fit. But then I was thinking, like, well, you got stores that are like made for. You got the XLT store. I know we have one in New Jersey. I drive by it on the highway. It's called like XLT or something. There's a women's store called Torrid, which is for plus size women. And when you look at the ads for plus size women, you see happy, confident women, right? I'm all for that. That's great. But remember the old ads that you used to see in magazines, like, 8, 10, 12 years ago? Very skinny women. They had that, model look where they parted lips.
Because they didn't have the model look. They were models.
Well, but they had the parted lips. They were kind of staring out into nowhere. They had the kind of "there's nothing going on in here" look in their eyes, and they did
some of them weren't faking.
Exactly, they did pretty well with selling their product. But now, there's so much pushback against that. Why can't? And then I was thinking, like, okay, so you have Torrid, and you got Old Navy, like, really wants to be this plus size, hefty people are welcome, and that's cool. But then and Old Navy was never like the epicenter of style, nor was Hollister. But Hollister was known to market towards skinny middle schoolers with whatever preference, floral patterns. And I just I was just thinking, so if you can have a store for fat people, why can't you have a store for skinny people? What's up with that?
I don't know. The world is changing because, like, read about this a couple years ago that in some European countries, they're actually, for models, you're not allowed to be employed as a model if your BMI is below a certain range. I think 18.5 is what is considered underweight, and I think it was like either 18.5 or 16.5. But like, if you were underweight by a certain amount, like, they wouldn't let you be a model. Which the idea was to, like, force the modeling industry to, I don't know, accept more realistic weights for women.
I read about this lawsuit in 2015 where Abercrombie has stopped hiring people based on body type and physical attractiveness. And they've also put a leeway on what their employees can wear, whereas they used to require their employees to wear clothing that either came from the store or looked like it came from the store. And I think it's, if you work at a store that has a style, you can't come in wearing a different store's. You can't work at Abercrombie and dress like you shop at Spencer's, right? Like with a guy.
Or a Hot Topic.
But Hot Topic, maybe. But how does that? And I don't know. I went in this rant in my mind, but before we were on air about how, just if you got a husky people get to shop at Torrid, why can't skinny people shop at Hollister? Or wherever.
Well, I think it's just that there's plenty of options for skinny people still. But let's wrap this up real quick. What are your takes on, as a younger man dating an older woman? Tie it up in 1 minute.
I think as anybody in a relationship where there's an age gap, and I'll even reduce this, it can simmer down to anybody who's in a relationship or starting a relationship. You got to be clear with who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you want out of that relationship. If it's a hookup, that's fine, but be clear with it right off the bat. Don't try to withhold it until the second or third date that's all you were looking for, and then just ghost that person. If you're dating somebody where there's an age gap, you need to acknowledge that age gap right off the bat. Be transparent upfront with what you want and what you bring to the table, and that's it. And I think you're going to have a lot more luck in relationships when it comes to that. James, what do you got?
Yeah, being honest and upfront at the beginning of a relationship is really the key to whether or not the relationship has any chance of working. And I would say don't even consider age really when you're in a relationship. Like, look at the person and say, is this somebody that I want to date? And if they're older than or younger than you, who cares? Just do what makes you happy and be fair to the other person.
All right. On that note, we wrap. Thank you guys for joining.
All right.
Thank you, TikTok. Make sure you guys follow me on TikTok. Catch us next Tuesday, next Thursday, and every Tuesday and Thursday after that. Thank you guys on Instagram for joining us. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. On that note, thank you, Rash Galeb, for forwarding the comments. We will see you guys next time. Adios.
All right. Cheers.
All right, we have reached the end. Thank you guys for joining. Did we miss anything? Were we crucially wrong here, or were we kind of on the right track? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.